you're gonna have to excuse me for this video. I don't really know how to film a video on this. It's one of those things where you look at it on the picture and it looks pretty cool and you pretty much know everything that's going on. But to get it to this point was excruciating. This is the hardest blaster I've ever built, bar none, and many of you are going to be looking at it and go, well, that doesn't look like that complicated, that difficult, you just did a thing, do a thing, do a thing, and I agree. I completely agree, but everything that could go wrong with this build did, which is why it took me nearly 2 years to complete. And worse yet, it's a commission. Which is one of the reasons why you don't see too many commissions on my channel, and I don't think I'll be doing any more of them, because I'm not good at doing commissions. In fact, this thing right here only loosely resembles what the actual creator wanted, and really all they wanted was a freaking Demolisher with an underbarrel boss mega dart shooting master key. And they got that. I thought it would be relatively simple, and honestly, the body work itself wasn't really that hard. It was everything else, most exclusively the painting, but pretty much everything that did go wrong was very, very much of a setback. And so here we are. Here's the Lantern's Light. A blaster that, honestly probably isn't worth doing a video on, but I have to redeem myself somehow, so here is a custom NERF Demolisher with a BuzzBee boss as the underbarrel, or is it Baron? I don't even remember. I think it's a Baron, a BuzzBee Baron. I don't even remember what blasters I use, with a NERF modulus stock to house the battery, and the original battery tray here holds AA batteries, and there's a little tiny switch back here that turns on some LEDs that aren't going to look really that impressive in, like, bright sunlight, but they look pretty good at night or in photos, which is important. I wish I could have diffused them more, but I'll take what I can get because this was a very hard project. And I'm going to have to talk about everything. It's going to be really boring, but let's start with the most obvious inclusion, the underbarrel master key here, which again I said was a boss or Baron. I can't remember which one's which. I'll have to put text up on the screen to remember what blaster I actually used, but it's a 2-shot with a rotating plunger tube that fires mega darts, because BuzzBee shot mega darts for some reason for a little while and never did it ever again, which is a shame because they're pretty good at it. The only upgrade that was done to this was I swapped out the spring for a cut-down exploder's spring, which was a pretty good fit in here. I believe I got that tip from Captain Xavier. And that is pretty much the only thing except for the trigger, which is just a threaded rod ran through the blaster, and where the actual trigger would pull back and, you know, release the catch, I just made it pivot, so you do that and it releases the catch. There's another button on this side, but the problem with that is I haven't glued it, because if you glue this, it's going to be really hard to take apart, but you pretty much have to glue it to be able to use it, so it doesn't really do anything right now. That's up to the commissioner's discretion if they want to glue this piece. It could still always be broken off and unthreaded later, but right now, it's just there to look pretty. So basically, if you're right or left-handed, you're going to be operating the entire thing like that, which I think works perfectly fine. At least I think so, anyway. The bodywork on this was actually probably the easiest part, because it really was just sanding and filing and sanding and filing, and it turned out really freaking good. At least I thought so. It was like the most beautiful integration I had ever done ever. It looks like it belongs on the blaster, and you'd never even be able to tell that it was, like, not supposed to be there, except for the fact that when I put this thing together, after the fact, like the final put together, all the putty on the back end here cracked, which I filled in with epoxy and tried to paint over it, and it still didn't work because you would have to need to sand it, so, whoops. It's not like a structural thing, it's a completely cosmetic thing, but it's a completely cosmetic thing that is very upsetting. But it's there. It still looks pretty good. It looks good from far away, and I think that's the most important part. So when you get close to it, it starts to look bad. I'm the creator, so of course I'm going to notice every little imperfection, and I'm never happy with anything, so it's going to take me a long time to get over this, and you can probably see a couple of imperfections from right there, and if you look hard enough, you'll see lots of them. But I did my absolute best. I don't know if I can do any better than this. In fact, I never want to paint ever again. The LEDs came about because, well, obviously the stock Demolisher tray won't fit a battery unless you use like a little tiny 500 like milliamp hour battery in there, and I didn't want that, so why not use the original battery tray for LEDs? And I already knew I kind of wanted to put something up here at the front, so basically that's just a piece of plastic that's been sanded down, and there's an LED strip in there, a 5-volt LED strip that's USB powered. I just cut off the LEDs, soldered them to wires, and put them onto the battery tray, and it worked fine. Stock 4 AA batteries. Works perfectly good, and then I kind of figured, I like thumbhole stocks, and I really wanted more LED work on it, so why not put like a piece of PETG here, sand it down and put LEDs in it, and make it a thumbhole stock. So I did. Commissioner didn't ask for that, but it felt really weird to me to like leave this blaster not having anything in here and just send it off. That didn't work in my brain. That's my problem. So I did it. Threw in some extra stuff. Why not? It's got a Strife, like, worker mag release. It's a little bit loose, but it doesn't drop the mag, so I guess it's fine. I don't know why it's loose, but it is. It's one of those things. And, of course, the stock is the modular storage stock that's meant to hold darts and whatnot. This one holds the battery and everything else. It's stock. It's rather comfortable, actually. I like how it kind of matches the top of the Demolisher here. It kind of made it feel all kind of squared off. And for me, it's the perfect length. No joke. This is flawless. Like, even having my hand on the grip right here, this is perfect. It's not my blaster, but it worked out really well. Now, you can try to take this stock off, but it's got like, I think 10 wires running through here. Batteries, both sides of the LEDs. There's a disconnector on this side. Probably not the optimal side to put the disconnect, but there's a little disconnect so you can take this side of the shell off. And it's all wired up in here to this little tiny switch for the, for the LEDs. It's right there on the, like, storage stock pullback. This is actually reinforced. This will not collapse. There's a piece of PEX in here that will stop it from collapsing on you, which is important. And this doesn't stay closed for some reason. I don't know how that went, because again, I took this blaster apart nearly 2 years ago. I used about 5 different kinds of paint. I used a normal Rust-Oleum gray primer on pretty much everything, and this took a lot of sanding to get rid of all the digital camo and all the logos and everything on it. I don't know if you can tell how smooth this shell is, but it's rather smooth. I then went over all of that with what was on some of these parts, like the main body and everything. I went over that with a Rust-Oleum engine enamel bright green, because the Commissioner wanted a neon green and black, kind of like Green Lantern. And then some of that was taped off to give it the whole black aesthetic, so there are places where it's black and green, and there are places where it's green and black. And you can kind of tell by the whole engine enamel thing, that's where almost all of my problems with painting came from, because it's a different kind of paint. It's not like a spray paint, which I actually don't know what kind of paint spray paint is. Like, is it a lacquer, or an acrylic, or an enamel? But the engine enamel and the spray paint did not get along very well, so I had crackling on this blaster 4 different times. And it required me to sand down the blaster and redo it 4 times. That's a lot of time and effort put into painting a blaster. And the first time I painted this, I let it sit for 2 days before trying to do the second coat. And it crackled up immediately. I think that's because I did it in the sun, or it could have been because the black spray paint on top of the green enamel could not bite in and just crackled up. I didn't put very heavy coats on it, but even when, at the very end, the last paint job, when I went over this thing, I did very light coats and still got some crackling in places, and all I did was sand them down and painted it some more. And it finally worked. And then I went over all of that with multiple layers of a Rust-Oleum clear coat gloss, because they wanted a shiny, glossy blaster. I personally really liked this thing before I put the gloss on it, because it had like a gloss from the engine enamel and then a matte black, which was really cool, but they wanted gloss, so I put gloss on it. And same thing with the magazine. It's just a Modulus 10 rounder that's been painted, and there's a matching drum that is still drying, but there's a drum that goes with this, a 25 round drum. So that's the thing. There's some minor dry brushing on it to try to bring out some little pops here and there. I didn't want to go too heavy on it because I kind of wanted it to look factory new, even though it's cracked in some places. So I just tried to do a little bit here and there, and I mean, it works. It just gives it some little scuffs here or there. It's always one of those things that you could add more to it if you want. Performance is pretty alright. It hits about 120, 115 with a Open Flywheel Projects 42.5mm gapped Demolisher cage with Fang revamps in it and Bulldog flywheels on a 2S LiPo, of course, which is pretty alright. And the underbarrel hits around 60, which I don't know what the stock Baron shoots. Keep in mind, these are mega darts, so they even 60 FPS, it goes way farther than a 60 FPS Nerf dart, but shoots pretty okay. I kind of wish that hit harder, and I don't know how to get to hit harder because I already did a spring upgrade. If you do too much of a spring upgrade, the priming rod flexes and doesn't work. So, I don't know. I have a feeling it would work a lot better if it was shooting normal elite darts, but that was not on the menu. And I can kind of understand why, because I like to diversify my ammo a lot too, so having the Mega up here is a good addition, I feel, to the standard semi-auto Demolisher, and there is nothing else done here. It's still just a Demolisher. I have got a upgraded rev trigger here, because that's pretty much required, but everything else is rather stock. Just a nice paint job, integration. It turned out okay. This was kind of just an afterthought. And really, I don't know what else to say about it. I'm happy that it's done. I really like it. I'm kind of sad that it's going to be leaving me. But I worked really hard on it, and I hope that comes through. Like, there's really not a whole lot I get to say about this one, because it's not my typical kind of integration blaster thing or anything like that. Like, it's just kind of a thing that happened, it did what it did, and that's that. Going back, I could probably do a lot better. I'm not happy with the flywheel cage in here at all. I'm not happy with pretty much anything. Performance-wise, it works pretty good, but I wanted it to hit like 130, 140, but if you were using it for like, you know, End War or something, this would be pretty good, because they have like a 130 FPS cap, which is pretty alright. I'm never going to be happy with it. That's just kind of how this works. But hopefully the commissioner is, and of course if they have problems, they know how to contact me. But other than that, I really hope you enjoyed this one. I'm sorry it's been so long since I put out a video, but I had to get this done. Because now that means I get to do all of the other things that I've been meaning to do for quite some time. I have a lot of projects that are like halfway, partially completed, and I want to get those projects done and get on to doing some interesting things, but I'm happy with how this turned out, mostly, and I think they're going to be really happy with it as well. Let me know what you think about Lantern's Light down in the comment section below. This was honestly kind of a hard video to film because I really don't know what else to say about it, but if you have any questions, I can answer them. Other than that, I'm Walcom S7. Thank you very much for watching this video, and of course, I hope to see you in an entirely different one.
You gotta